Hello, fellow person of the internet. Welcome back to This Is a Duck. Now, today's video is going to be on one of my latest LEGO trains that I've made. You already know it from the title and the thumbnail of the video, but here you go. So this cute little thing is based off of the Kitson Shunter, which is a saddle tank locomotive designed in 1932 for the LMS. It operated in various locations across the UK, performing shunting duties and light freight traffic. They lasted in service for quite a number of years, but withdrawals did begin in the 1960s, and by 1966 the last member of the class had been scrapped. Now in this particular case, I wanted to build a tank engine that was small, and had its power system self-contained within it and not in a powered van or something behind it. Now, I had a similar goal in mind when I made my M7 a while ago. I think that was back in like 2019 I made that. And the whole powered up system had just come out. It was really new, and I bought this fancy new Bluetooth battery box, and I bought the new train motor as well that came with it. And it was all very fancy, and it's like, oh wow, I can now make a tank engine that's powered all by itself. But we moved on a bit since then, and Circuit Cube exists now, which is significantly smaller and more compact. So I thought I'd give the whole idea another go. So I pulled out my favourite book, the 1950s Observer's Book of Railway Locomotives. And started flipping through it to see what sort of little tank engines I could find. I had a few false starts with this thing and this thing, but eventually I landed on, as you already know, the Kitson Shunter. Since it's quite a small loco, it didn't take too long to build. I used my usual method of putting together a prototype out of parts I already had, and then buying the correct colours once I had a design I was satisfied with. I did run into a few setbacks while designing it. The first of these was with the window design. I really wanted the windows to be see-through, and I'd found these little magnifying glass pieces on Bricklink, which I thought looked quite cool. But turns out they're really tricky to implement. I tried so many different designs to try and get them to work, but I just didn't like how they looked. They always have these sort of ugly gaps around the windows, which I just couldn't get rid of. In the end, I went with these little turntable pieces instead. They're much easier to implement than the magnifying glass pieces, but they're still see-through and they still look decent. Now, the other issue I had was it doesn't have any magnets. And you may be wondering why that is. And that's simply because I forgot to add them. Yeah, just straight out forgot. Didn't notice they weren't there. Anyway, I only noticed this when the design was almost finished. I just really didn't want to have to redesign the buffer beams. So instead of that, I chose to use these little chain pieces instead. I did have several people say that the chains wouldn't work, so I thought I'd do a few little tests to see how viable they were. For the first test, I just connected up the longest and heaviest train I could make and just pulled it to see if the chains would detach. Very scientific, I know. Turns out the buffer beam will disintegrate before the chains detach. Good to know. This gave me a bit more confidence in the whole concept, and I thought I'd try something a little bit more risky. I'll let this one speak for itself. As you can see, it wasn't smashed into a million billion little pieces, so I think that concludes testing. No further testing shall be required. Aside from that, I'm really happy with how the model came out in the end. Even though it's the smallest train I made so far, I still managed to get quite a bit of detail into it, like the little leaf springs or the cab interior. I'm quite happy with that. I also spent some time designing some custom 3D printed wheels and rods for it. I made the designs for them on Tinkercad using photos of the real things for reference. I printed them on my Bamboo Labs A1 mini printer using black PLA for the wheels and silver silk PLA for the rods. I have had several people ask me if the rods are made of actual metal. They do look pretty convincing, but no, they are actually made of plastic. Now, when it comes to actually running the thing, it's pretty easy to operate. Both the coal bunkers and the entire boiler are removable, which gives easy access to both the on-off switch and the charging port. Just like my other models, it can be controlled from your phone using an app, only instead of the Buiz app or the Powered Up app, it's Circuit Cube app this time. This app's fairly similar in that it gives you sliders to control throttle, but it also allows you to program the battery box, which is pretty cool. Now, I found that this is actually probably my most reliable runner out of all of my locomotives. I've taken it to all the shows I've been to with the LUKR so far, and it just sort of gets on with whatever you ask of it without complaining. Parts of it don't just randomly fall off. It stays on the track when it's meant to. And the mechanism doesn't just randomly go on strike. Mallard. To be honest, the only real issue it has is it's not exactly going to be setting any speed records anytime soon. Circuit Cube motors are notorious for how slow they run, but it doesn't really matter since the real thing was never designed to be fast, so I'm not too bothered about it. Anyway, that's enough waffling for now. I'm sure I'd like to actually see this thing run, so I'll leave you some footage with it running on some of the LUKR layouts. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a like. If you're new, subscribe. If you've got any questions, drop a comment. I'm sure if you did, you already done that by now, but whatever. Cue the outro.